Every October is a milestone in my life. Not only is it my birthday month, the 21st in case you were wondering, but it's also the month where I first travelled and moved to Thailand back in 2017. In fact, I think I boarded a flight from Manchester Airport on the 21st on my birthday, which would have been my 24th birthday, and then landed in Bangkok for the first time the following day on the 22nd, which means that I've been living in Thailand for 7 years, a number that surprises even me somehow. Something amusing I noticed recently when I was thinking about making this video was that when I first came to Thailand, so when I'd been here like 8 months or when I've been here a year and a half, and someone would ask me how long I've been living in Thailand, I would always exaggerate and sort of round up. So if I'd been here 7 or 8 months, I'd just be like, yeah, I've been here a year. If I'd been here a year and a half, I might tell them I'd been here 2 years. That was something that I used to do. However, now I've recently been catching myself doing the exact opposite. So I caught myself just last week on Koh Samui where someone asked me, how long have you been here? And I told them 5 years. I think part of the reason why is that I do have a memory like a sieve, and it's kind of easy to forget sometimes. It's also at that time, it doesn't feel like I've been here 7 years. This past 3 or 4 years have absolutely flown by. But there is something else. It's almost like I'm slightly embarrassed to admit I've been here 7 years, partly because I think if I told someone that I've been here for 7 years, they would imagine that I'm completely content, comfortable, I'm well established here, I'm fluent in the language, and I feel perfectly comfortable living here. But to be honest, it's actually in year 7 of living out here that I feel the most unsettled, the most unconfident about things, and just generally anxiety ridden. I'm pretty sure that I've already told the reasons why and how I moved to Thailand on this channel a couple of times. But the short story is I graduated from university. I worked a few odd jobs back home in the UK. I wasn't feeling too great. I had this real burning desire to travel, but not really enough money to fund a long sort of period of travel. So I decided to start studying for a teaching English as a second language certificate. After about a year, post-graduation of a little bit of extra study and working sort of odd jobs, I had enough money and the right qualifications to begin applying for entry-level teaching jobs in different countries. I signed with pretty much the first agency I found who could offer me positions in Vietnam, China or Thailand, and I selected Thailand. When I first came here, I only planned to stay for 6 months. I only signed a 6-month contract with the school to work. And I thought after those 6 months, I would maybe move somewhere else. I had travel plans as well at around that 6-month mark. I had a trip to India planned. So my plan was to work for 6 months, go on this trip, and then maybe look for work elsewhere and try somewhere new. However, after those 6 months, I created a lot of really good friends, and I had quite an active social life in Korat, where I'm based, which is in sort of northeastern Thailand, which is the first job and the first place I lived in Thailand. I'd sort of fallen in love with the place somewhat as well. I really enjoyed living there. The work was good. The school that I'd been placed at, I kind of landed on my feet, I think, even though I didn't necessarily realize it at first. But yeah, the school was well equipped. The teachers that I was working with were helpful and friendly. So I really felt settled in. And also that trip I planned to India fell in the school holidays. So it wasn't a problem for me. I could return after the trip and continue on working at the same school. So when they did, they offered me a year contract following my first initial 6 months. I felt stupid not to sign. So after the first 6 months, I was starting to feel confident and starting to enjoy my work and life in Thailand. And then I came back again and did another year at the same school. And after that year, I found myself the owner of a rather nice and little nifty Honda motorcycle, and I was in a long-term committed relationship too. So once that year came to its conclusion, then I signed another year contract with the same school. As a funny little side note, it was in Korat where I first began to kind of really try to make content creation a main focus, especially in my free time. It was in Korat where I recorded my first YouTube video. It's kind of funny looking back at the video. It's kind of embarrassing also, looking back at how bad I spoke, how bad everything was set up. And actually it's quite nice to see how far I've come, how better I am at speaking even just. And it's also nice to look back at that video and see my old room in Korat. I was sat on my bed in my 1-bedroom condo room up in the first city I ever lived in. So it is actually quite nice that I have video record of that place, because it was a time that I was pretty happy. Things seemed to be going well for me up there. So in total, I spent around 2.5 years, I think, in Korat in northeastern Thailand, working at my first school. After that time, I decided to move to the south, which is where I find myself now in Surat Thani in southern Thailand. The main reason for the move, though, was my ex-partner. They really wanted to move to the south. They wanted to be closer to some of their family and potentially start a business down here. For me, I was kind of looking forward to moving closer to all the famous islands and beaches, so I didn't think it was such a bad idea too. Sadly, however, the move certainly wasn't without its fair share of bumps along the way. In fact, we moved just as COVID broke out, so we'd already sent some of the stuff to the south of Thailand. When all the lockdowns began to roll out, I was meant to fly back home to the UK, apply for a different type of visa, and then return. Those flights got cancelled, flights in and out got cancelled, everything began to shut down, lockdown started to take place, so we really drove down because we didn't really have too many other options. Half our stuff was already down there, so we just set off anyway, and like it was literally as we were going, kind of towns were sort of locking down and travel was being restricted. The first place we stayed in southern Thailand was in a remote kind of village, which I didn't last terribly long in. It was pretty difficult living there. It was a very small house. It didn't have particularly many facilities, so it was difficult. And like we said, everything was shut down outside, so it was a real strange and difficult time. That kind of first year in southern Thailand. Following the remote village, I moved to Koh Samui for around 6 months, which was amazing. Koh Samui is one of the bigger islands in Thailand, one of the more popular holiday destinations. It was great living there, if a little bit expensive. And I was also fortunate to be there, to be honest, at the tail end of like the COVID lockdowns, because there still weren't that many people visiting or holidaying at that time. So, you know, you'd go to the beach and have the entire beach to yourself, you know, something I doubt I'll ever see again. So that was a pretty special time. But like I said, it was tricky to find like work. And to be honest, I didn't love living in like a kind of holiday destination. It kind of felt like, it was weird. It felt weird living somewhere where everyone else seems to be on holiday. So I moved back to the mainland and found work in my second school in the south, in a bit of a bigger city. To be honest, the second school I worked at, I have a lot less fond memories of. There seem to be a lot more issues. I won't get into any of the specifics here. But yeah, I really realized how ungrateful I'd been of my first job, and really sort of kind of felt like I'd made a massive mistake leaving that job. There was a lot of benefits, a lot of perks that I didn't get at this new position. I did work at the school for around 2 years, but that did come to an end pretty recently. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that year 7 has left me the most uncertain and somewhat anxious about being here. You know, this year I found myself unemployed. I also experienced kind of a breakup. My relationship for the last 5 years came to an end. So yeah, I was really at a loss a few months ago. I really didn't know what to do. I was certain that I was going to have to move back home. I'd been working a job for around 5.5 years, and that came to kind of an abrupt end just as I was starting to feel confident and comfortable in what I was doing. I thought I was, you know, in a relationship for the rest of my life. I imagined that was it now, and I was going to have a family and kids, and then I found myself single. And I also started to think that I'd kind of exhausted my visa options as well. So I've been working predominantly in schools and using the non-immigrant B visa, which is the working visa. Obviously, not working in schools means that that's no longer available going forward. So it really looked like my time in Thailand was up. And perhaps if you are a follower of this channel, you may have been wondering why I'd not been uploading videos recently, and those are some of the reasons perhaps why. 7 years ago, I moved to Thailand looking for a fresh start. And it is kind of depressing noticing that I've kind of walked in a full circle and found myself right back where I began. A little bit lost, looking for a fresh start. It was kind of crushing seeing like a career kind of sort of go nowhere that I've been pursuing for the last 5 years, and had imagined that I'd be in at least for the medium to long term going forward in the future. It was absolutely devastating coming to the end of a relationship I thought was going to be a life partnership, and it's even heartbreaking thinking that you have to leave a country that you've really come to love. I don't know if this sounds kind of corny, but oftentimes when I find myself sort of feeling stuck or beat down, there's an image I often remember. It was an image that really struck me once. I think I saw it on TV. It was at a football game, and it was an entire sort of section or a terrace of a football stadium holding up a banner, and the image was like a boxer kind of standing triumphantly, and the words printed across, obviously this was massive and covered sort of one side of a stadium, a football stadium. And the words on the banner said something like, "It doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, it only matters if you get back up." And life is funny because since losing that job, I've actually began to find sort of interesting opportunities for remote work online, which potentially suits me even better than my previous job. I thought that the visa options had kind of run dry, and then a couple of months ago, very recently, the Thai government releases this new visa type called the Destination Thailand visa, which is a visa aimed at people who work remotely. And I did make a video about that visa, so I'll leave a link in the description in case that's something you're interested in. But it looks like I was thrown a lifeline for a potential visa option too. And that is kind of the reason why I wanted to make this video, or one of the reasons why I wanted to explain my absence from YouTube and content creation in general. I did want to mark this 7-year milestone with a video on this channel as well, because it does feel somewhat significant. But mainly I did want to share that kind of message, or those words that keep on appearing so often in my head or in my mind. I see them a lot, especially when I'm feeling somewhat defeated, especially when times aren't going too well. It doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, it only matters that you get back up.